After picking up the lucky girl, the whole village became prosperous. Chapter 1, Girl Movie. Chapter 1 Girl Film. It's another girl movie. Chen Fengshe put the newborn baby into Er's hand with disgust, snorted, turned around and left the house. Going to the kitchen, I saw 2 bowls of brown sugar poached eggs on the stove, and I was very angry. He picked up a bowl and poured it into the pot, and said to the eldest daughter-in-law, "I will give the sugar-watered eggs to your 4th aunt first. Your 2nd brother and sister can't eat them for the time being. We will wait until she is hungry. Add some water to the pot and boil them for Kirsonger. Brother, how many points are there?" "Yes, mother." Mrs. Zhao was delighted and quickly picked up a bowl of sugar-watered eggs and went to the second room. Opening the curtain, I caught a glimpse of my second uncle standing at the door of the room, holding his newborn daughter in his arms, his expression unclear. Handing the sugar-water egg in her hand to the midwife who was sorting out the medicine box, Mrs. Zhao said, "4th aunt, you eat the mouth pad first." 4th Aunt Wu was not polite. She took the soup bowl and ate all 6 poached eggs and drank the brown sugar water in one go. Wiped his mouth, stood up, picked up the small medicine box, and said, "I'm going back right now. Later, let your 3rd brother and sister rub their stomachs more and remove the lochia. If you need anything, just call me. It's not far anyway." Ms. Zhao said quickly, "Okay, thank you for your hard work, 4th aunt. I will ask Daolong to see you off." 4th Aunt Wu put the medicine box on her back, glanced meaningfully at Chen Erlang who was standing there, and then lifted the curtain and went out with Mr. Zhao. The mother lying on the Kong turned her head, pulled up the quilt to cover her face, and began to cry. The man holding the swaddled baby pursed his lips tightly, with a gloomy and terrifying look on his face. He already had 2 daughters, but he didn't expect that this baby would be a girl. This made Chen Chongping angry and ashamed. Thinking of his 3 brothers, the eldest brother already has 2 sons, and even a 3rd brother who just got married last year also gave birth to a son, but in his own house, all 3 babies were girls. No, it's 4 children. The baby was born more than a year ago, not long after the birth. My wife was sleeping soundly at night and accidentally covered her head and face, and she ran out of breath the next day. That is also a daughter. Chen Chongping felt his head was buzzing and he felt ashamed. As the saying goes, there are 3 types of unfilial piety, the greatest of which is not having offspring. Is his 2nd wife about to die? Thinking that he might receive strange looks from his relatives and friends, scoldings from his parents overtly or covertly, and all kinds of rumors, Chen Chongping suddenly felt his blood flow. Looking at the baby in his hands again, his heart and eyes were full of disgust. He turned around and left the house. At this time, the sky was filled with sunset, and there were only a few pedestrians on the road. Chen Chongping put his little swaddling clothes in his wide sleeves and walked quickly towards the back mountain. The baby in the sleeve twisted its little head once, wriggled its little mouth twice, and fell asleep peacefully again. Standing next to the grave for a while, I still felt that it was too close to the mountain road and not secluded enough. It would not be good if this little evil beast was picked up by passing villagers and carried back to the village to spread the word. His wife had just given birth, so it was easy for people to guess that it was lost at his home. After thinking about it, Chen Chongping walked dozens more steps inside before taking out the swaddling clothes and placing them in the thatch. He stood for a moment longer, shook his hands, and finally did not dare to strangle the baby girl to death. Forget it. She might be snatched away by a wild wolf overnight, and she wouldn't have to bear the debt of killing a woman. Looking around and seeing no one around, Chen Chongping turned around and walked down the mountain, walking in a hurry. In late spring, the wild peaches all over the mountains have lost their flowers and are now covered with fluffy little fruits. Wild cherries are already ripe and hanging on the treetops. Their red and yellow colors are particularly eye-catching. Dongchen village, by the Xiaochuan River, several women were beating clothes and washing vegetables. Have you heard? Yesterday Jiang Sanlang's family picked up a female doll. I don't know which family lost it. TSK, the umbilical cord hasn't been taken off yet. Is it true? 2nd aunt, have you seen it with your own eyes? A woman seemed to be unconvinced. Who would lose a baby these days? Is there still a holiday? I went to his house to borrow a bucket this morning and saw it with my own eyes. Aunt Wang wrung out the clothes in her hands and threw them into the basket. The baby's face was red and swollen, and he said he was bitten by ants, tsk tsk tsk. Oh, what a sin. Another woman raised her head and asked, where did you pick it up? I don't know, Jiang Sanlang's family refused to tell anyone. Second Aunt Wang looked around and said with a gossipy face, I don't know anyone from a few nearby villages. I don't know anyone who is so wicked. No. Several women beat their clothes with ping-pong bang. It's not from our village anyway. There are only about 20 households in our village, and everyone knows when a mother-in-law farts, let alone giving birth to a baby. A woman said. Everyone laughed. There are no such cruel people in our village. Second Aunt Wang curled her lips and said, it's a pity that she is a girl. If she were a boy, Su Chuanyang would be relieved. Jiang Sanlang has been married for 10 years, but his daughter-in-law Su Chuanyang didn't even lay an egg. Jiang Laonyang was almost angry to death for this. Several women looked at each other and smiled knowingly, yes, yes. Thanks to Jiang Sanlang's benevolence and righteousness, he has not divorced his wife for so many years. That is, if you leave me in my house, you may scold her all day long. Let alone 10 years, she will divorce me if she doesn't get pregnant for 3 years. No, everyone agreed. A woman banged her clothes-beating stick and said, hey, Chun Yang is also blessed with a good life. She married a husband who loves others. If Jiang Sanlang wasn't there to protect her, would you still be considered Mrs. Jiang? That's right, it's a pity that Jiang Sanlang is a talented person, capable of both literary and military skills. Tsk, 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 he may be extinct in the future. Another person sighed. Who says it's not? All the women sighed. One moment they felt bad for Jiang Sanlang, and the next moment they envied Mrs. Su for her good life and married a handsome and caring husband. When I think about the unshaven and sweaty guy in my house, I immediately feel sour. Girls are just right. A woman twisted her clothes and said, as the saying goes, a baby will be born if you hold it in your arms. This baby girl might attract a fat boy to Jiang Sanlang. That's not necessarily true. A woman retorted. Why is it not certain? Isn't it the case in Chen Ergu's house in Shitsuan? His wife has been silent for 3 years, and his mother brought back a baby girl from outside for them to raise. But guess what, Ergu's wife became pregnant within 2 years. Yes, yes, I've heard about it too, it really does happen. So, maybe Jiang Sanlang brought the baby from somewhere else. He deliberately said he picked it up because he was afraid that he would not be able to attract children in the future and would be laughed at. Ha ha ha, that's right. A few women chatted and gossiped for a while, washed their clothes, and each carried a basket and went home. Dongchen Village, the third room of the Jiang family. Jiang Sanlang came into the house with a bowl of goat's milk and said to his wife, yesterday, my eldest brother's sheep gave birth, so I squeezed some milk and boiled it to feed the baby. Hey, this is such a coincidence. Su Chuanyang was pleasantly surprised, now the baby has milk to drink. I was worried about what to feed the children, but I didn't expect that the ewe my eldest brother bought years ago actually gave birth to a calf. He put the swaddling clothes in his hands on the bed, covered him with a thin quilt, rolled up his sleeves and took the bowl, and said to his husband, I'll go cook it. Come and look at the baby. She was crying so hard just now. Jiang Sanlang handed the pottery bowl to his wife's hand and stretched his head to look at the little baby on the bed. The more he looked at it, the more he liked it. Maybe he is very hungry. He drank some sugar water since yesterday. The little baby on the bed opened his eyes slightly and suddenly grinned at him. Hey, my little girl will laugh. Jiang Sanlang was pleasantly surprised. He touched his stubble and said proudly, my little girl has recognized her father. That's all nonsense. Su Chuanyang glared at him, she's so young, how can she recognize you? Jiang Sanlang chuckled, it's hard to say, our daughter is very smart. She stopped crying as soon as I hugged her yesterday, she just kept crying, as if she was extremely wronged. When he thought of the little girl's aunt's face at that time, Jiang Sanlang felt heartbroken. He stretched out his hand to touch her head and sighed. I don't know who is so cruel as to throw their newborn baby into a grave because they don't want her to live. Had I not happened to be passing by there and heard the cry of a child in the cemetery and boldly gone to check, the child would have been eaten by snakes, rats and ants in another day and a half. Sigh, if you don't want to raise her, you can give it away. Why would you want to take her life? It's okay, from now on you will be my daughter-in-law, Jiang San. Jiang Sanlang picked up the baby, bumped it, and held it tightly to his chest. As long as you have something to eat from me, you will never be hungry. End of this chapter. After picking up the lucky girl, the whole village became prosperous. Chapter 2, Rebirth. Chapter 2 Rebirth. The milk in the earthen pot was boiling, and Su Chuanyang skimmed off the milk skin with a spoon. When it cooled down, she took the baby and fed her a spoonful. The little kid was not in a hurry or fussy, swallowing one mouthful at a time. When he was almost done eating, he closed his mouth and closed his eyes, as if he wanted to sleep. Wiping the corners of the little girl's mouth with a handkerchief, Su Chuanyang patted her back gently, raised her head and said to her husband, Sanlang, give her a name. Jiang Sanlang scratched his head and couldn't think of anything good to say after holding it for a long time. How about asking San Shuchen to pick it up? I can't think of a good name at the moment. Chen Sanchu's name is Chen Sanyu. He is the village leader of Dongchen village. He is highly respected and proficient in writing. Many families in the village have asked him to name their children. Su Chuanyang shook her head, no need to go to such trouble. She didn't want everyone to know that she had picked up a child. Although this matter cannot be hidden at all, it is better to keep a low profile. When the baby grows up, everyone will get used to it. How about calling her Ingbao? Su Chuanyang touched her daughter's little face and said softly, you came across this treasure when you went to Beishan to pick cherries. Okay, let's call it Ingbao. Jiang Sanlang slapped his thigh and said cheerfully, Chun Yang, you are right, it is a treasure you encounter while picking cherries. Hee, this name is great and auspicious. In the blink of an eye, summer turns to winter and spring comes again, and when the grass grows and the orioles fly, little Ingbao is already 11 months old. Not only can she crawl, but she can also walk a few steps while holding on to the wall. Dad! Ingbao held the wall with one hand and opened his other hand to Jiang Sanlang who had just entered the room, hug. Now she can speak, but she can only pronounce one or two words. Hey, Ingbao is learning to walk, are you tired? Come on, let's see what Daddy has brought for you. Jiang Sanlang took out a wrinkled green-red fruit from his arms, shook it in his hand, bent down and teased his daughter, would you like to eat it? It's so sweet and fragrant. Ingbao's eyes lit up, she stretched out her chubby little hands and hugged her, expiration. Big apple, although its appearance is not very good, it is rare to see it in the countryside at this time. Where did it come from? Mrs. Su, who was sitting next to her, took a look and pierced the thread to hold the sole of the shoe. Jiang Sanlang chuckled, bent down to pick up his daughter, and sat next to his wife, my mother gave it to me. She didn't want to eat it, so she secretly gave it to me, saying it was for Ingbao's sweet mouth. Mrs. Su rolled her eyes at her husband and said disapprovingly, it's a New Year's gift from my eldest aunt to my parents. How dare you take it from your family? We have already separated. If others see it, it will be criticized or not. The uncle's family also has children. If the elder sister-in-law knew that her mother-in-law secretly gave apples to her third son, she would not know what she would think. What's the point of this? It's not what I asked for. Why don't I accept it when my mother gives it to me? The elder gives it to me, so I can't refuse it. Do you understand? Jiang Sanlang was nonchalant. Seeing that his daughter could not bite the peel with her small teeth, he took it and gnawed at it, chewing away a circle of peel, and then stuffed it back into his daughter's hand. Ingbao. Looking down at the pitted fruit that was being chewed, I suddenly couldn't stop eating. Why don't you eat it? Jiang Sanlang scratched his daughter's nose and said with a smile, do you dislike your father? Ingbao blinked and shook his head, no problem. After saying that, he bit off a large piece, took it out of his mouth, and stuffed it into his father's mouth, Daddy. Jiang Sanlang laughed loudly and took a bite of the filial piety offered by his daughter. Mrs. Su also smiled and touched her daughter's furry little head. Our Ingbao is so filial and knows how to give the first bite to daddy. Ingbao nodded heavily. Filial piety. Dad, Mom. He bit off another piece and gave it to Chun Yang. Haha, what a good girl. Jiang Sanlang smiled heartily. When my parents get old, I will rely on the cherry blossoms to see them off. Ingbao shook his head, raised his little fat finger and pointed at Grandma. Brother. Ingbao. Give it away. What did Ingbao say? Jiang Sanlang asked with a smile, not understanding what his daughter said. Ingbao got off her father's lap, stumbled to Mrs. Su, threw herself into Nyang's arms, touched her belly and said, Brother. Mother, brother. Jiang Sanlang seemed to understand this time. Does his daughter want to say that her mother has a younger brother in her belly? How can it be? Ms. Su also looked confused, touched her belly and asked with a smile, Ingbao said Mom has a younger brother here. Yeah. Ingbao nodded heavily, put his little hand on Nyang's belly, and said firmly, Brother. 2. Jiang Sanlang was stunned, and suddenly remembered that his wife had been unable to eat in the past few days and often retched. Could it be, his eyes suddenly brightened up astonishingly. He grabbed his wife's arm and said, You've been complaining about gastrointestinal discomfort these past few days. How about let's go find a doctor. Su was also stunned and murmured, It's impossible. She has been married for almost 11 years. How could someone in her late 30s be pregnant? Jiang Sanlang picked up his wife and said hurriedly, It's not troublesome to go and take a look, but, even if you're not pregnant, we have to get a pulse. You can't eat these days, so it's not a problem. Mrs. Su thought deeply and nodded, Then, let's go and have a look. I'm sure I won't be able to catch up now. Let's go to town tomorrow. Yeah. Jiang Sanlang picked up his daughter and spun her around. He was so happy that he couldn't see his teeth. My dear daughter, your parents will take you to town to play tomorrow. Su pursed her lips and chuckled, put away the soles of her shoes, let's have soup cakes for dinner, and make some custard for Ingbao. Mr. Zhang, the medical woman, lives in the town, about 5 or 6 miles away from Dongchen village. It takes half an hour to walk. Jiang Sanlang was afraid of tiring his wife, so he planned to borrow a donkey from Chinsuan's house to travel. No. Mrs. Su felt a little embarrassed, just leave like this, it's not like you can't walk. Physician Zhang is a well-known stable woman in the town. No one in the country knows it. The people who go to her to check their pulse are either pregnant women or women who are expecting to be pregnant. A few years ago, I had many pulse tests and took a lot of medicine, but there was no movement in my stomach. This time, if I go again, it would be fine if I am really pregnant. If not, others may make fun of me. That's fine. Jiang Sanlang held his daughter with one hand and supported his wife with the other, then you should be careful. Mrs. Su chuckled and pushed her husband's hand away, I went to fetch water yesterday, but now I can't walk on the street. Jiang Sanlang retracted his hand, hugged his daughter tightly, and said in a low voice, Don't make any choices in the future, wait until I come back to do everything. These days of spring planting, he has to go to the fields to work before dawn, and his wife even delivers lunch to the fields. After turning the ground, the soil is fat and sow, and after I am busy with my elder brother's house. However, in the future, he can get up half an hour earlier, and he will definitely fill the water tank at home before going to the fields. Ms. Su smiled at her husband and touched her belly, feeling full of uneasiness in her heart. Ingbao blinked and looked at her father, then at her mother, then pursed her lips and smiled. It's great that my mother is pregnant with her brother and their family is finally reunited. Ingbao hugged her father's neck tightly, rested her head on his shoulder, and stared at the red birthmark on her wrist with lowered eyes. It was this birthmark that separated me from my parents and brothers forever. Have to find a way to get rid of it. Before taking it off, she had to hide it carefully so that no one could see it. She doesn't want to be recognized by that family again a few years later and experience abuse, plotting, and hanging again. In his previous life, he struggled to survive for more than 10 years, but he only lived to be 21 years old. Just when she thought she had finally escaped and her sufferings were over, she was suddenly found by her biological father and mother, and they teamed up to hang her. She clearly remembered that her biological mother tightened the rope in her hand and gnashed her teeth and cursed angrily, "You disaster star. Vicious bitch. How do you have the honor to live? How do you still dare to live?" Due to too much force, Han's face was distorted, foaming at the corners of his mouth, and he looked as ferocious as an evil ghost. Ingbao couldn't stop trembling when she thought of the pain of her throat being tightened, the explosion of her brain due to suffocation, and the despair and resentment in her heart. End of this chapter. After picking up the lucky girl, the whole village became prosperous. Chapter 3, Cave. Chapter 3, Cave Mansion. Ingbao died once and was reborn again, when Father Jiang first picked her up. She was both happy and worried. Happy to be back with my parents again and to be a carefree and pampered baby again. I am worried that in a few years, I will be recognized by that family again, and I will fall back on the same path of my whole life. In this era of etiquette between monarch, minister, father and son, she is a woman with no human rights. She is restricted by the etiquette rules of blood relatives, filial piety and brotherhood, and has no way to protect herself. Even though her biological father had abandoned her and never raised her, as long as they came to ask for her, everyone would stand on the moral high ground, accuse her of blood ties, use filial piety to suppress her, and even the government offices would speak for them. She has seen the faces of those people in her previous life, and she would never compromise even if she were to die again. What kind of kindness is greater than God? Bullshit. What kind of kindness does a person who is full of schemes and bent on putting her to death have to do with her? Ingbao closed her eyes, and her consciousness instantly entered a cave. This is her territory, a magical place that she accidentally discovered in her previous life, a mysterious cave. The cave is only 10 feet square, with a large almond-shaped pool in the middle. The pool takes up about 67% of the cave. The water in the pool is clear and sweet, with a hint of blue. There is a huge round sphere in the middle of the pool, which is emitting golden light like the sun. This is completely different from the cave in my previous life. I remember that when I was 18 years old, I had just escaped from the governor's mansion and hid around disguised as a beggar. One day, she hid in the shrine of a dilapidated temple and shivered. The dilapidated temple was drafty and bone-chilling. She had a fever and was a little confused. During her daze, her consciousness suddenly entered this strange cave. At that time, there was nothing but thick ice in the cave, which made her think that she had fallen into an ice cave. Unexpectedly, he came back to life. The ice on the wall melted away, and there was a pool of water in the cave. There was a round luminous body in the middle of the pool, which looked very extraordinary at first sight. Ingbao came to the pond and buried the apple seed she brought in yesterday into the soft black soil beside the pond. These black soils are 3 feet wide and surround the pond. At first glance, it looks like someone has drawn black eyeliner on the pond with a brush. Such a strange place, just like the mysterious cave in the storybook. So Ingbao wanted to verify whether the black soil also has magical functions as described in the storybook, and what is planted will grow. If an apple tree really grows one day, then their family will have big sweet apples to eat. After burying the seeds and watering them with water a few times, Ingbao's consciousness began to blur and he soon fell into a deep sleep. Opening my eyes again, I found that I had arrived at the doctor's house, and the doctor was taking my mother's pulse. Dr. Pajang is in her 70s. Her gray hair is neatly pulled back and she has a silver hairpin inserted into her bun. A tassel on the head of the hairpin sways gently with her movements. It is said that when she was young, this grandma worked as an errand in the county government office, doing a stable job. Later, when she got older, she returned to her hometown to take care of herself. She is very good at pregnancy and childbirth, and is also proficient in some difficult and complicated diseases of women, so many people come here to seek medical treatment. How? Jiang Sanlang couldn't help but ask. Dr. Zhang released her finger to detect the pulse, turned around and said with a smile, "Congratulations, your wife has a happy pulse. She has been feeling her pulse for about 3 months. Ah. Is it true or not? Don't tease me." Jiang Sanlang was excited and incoherent, a little unbelievable. Is this still false? The doctor woman stood up with a smile, took out a receiver from the medical box, and said to Mrs. Sue, "Sister, come with me, I will listen to the fetal breathing for you." Hey! Mrs. Sue stood up, looked at her husband, and followed the doctor into the inner room. After a while, the doctor came out and said happily, "Oh, Sanlang, your wife is pregnant with twins." Ah! Jiang Sanlang was pleasantly surprised. Are these, really twins? Yes. The doctor put the receiver into the medical box, glanced at Jiang San, and whispered, "Your wife is almost 30, isn't she? It's your first baby, so you need to be tighter." Jiang Sanlang became even more nervous and stammered, "Then, why does it matter? What should I do?" The doctor woman picked up a handkerchief and wiped her hands. Seeing Mrs. Sue sorting out her clothes and coming out of the room, she said, "Let your wife eat more meat, eggs and fine grains to take supplements. She should do light work and not be too tired. Wait for 7 or 8 days. After a month, you have to eat less rice and more vegetables at every meal to ensure smooth production." Oh. Jiang Sanlang responded hurriedly. "Also, hire a midwife as early as possible when the term is almost full term. Don't delay until it's too late." Dr. Zhang said earnestly, "Twins are not as good as singles. You can't be careless." Hey. Jiang Sanlang nodded. Jiang Sanlang was still a little dizzy when he came out of Dr. Zhang's house. He held his daughter in one hand and his wife in the other. He said softly, "Let's buy 2 kilograms of brown sugar first, and then measure a few liters of rice to make porridge for you. It's a pity that there is no market today, and the butcher shop in the town has closed early. Otherwise, we could still cut a piece of fat pork and take it home. Rice is so expensive, and I only have a few dozen dollars left at home, so I'd better not spend it carelessly." Chen Yang said angrily, "It's just the beginning of spring, and there are still several months before the summer harvest." Jiang Sanlang looked at his wife with pity and said comfortingly, "Don't worry, after our underground planting is completed, I will go to the county town and I can always find someone to make a living." "It's not that easy." Chen Yang sighed, "It's 100 miles away from the county seat. Where will you live then? Are you going to sleep in a ruined temple like last time?" At the end of last year's autumn harvest, Sanlang and 2 fellow villagers went to the county town to look for work. However, they couldn't find any work and the 3 of them were almost beaten to death by a group of local ruffians. Chen Suanjing's nephew was beaten the worst and is still unable to do heavy work in the fields. Jiang Sanlang scratched his head and said, "You must buy rice, brown sugar, and the doctor told you to eat more refined and easy-to-digest foods. Well, when I get home, I will kill an old hen and make soup for you to drink. We only have 2 hens left in our family. It's the egg-laying season right now. Where can I kill them?" Sue gave her husband a pinch and interrupted his nagging. "If there are no hens to lay eggs, what will our little baby eat?" "Yes, we Yingbao have to eat custard every day, I got it wrong." Jiang Sanlang scratched the back of his head, Yingbao blinked and was at a loss. The family is poor, with 3 thatched huts and a small kitchen, and a yard surrounded by bamboo fences, just like in the previous life, with almost only 4 walls. Food, there will be enough to eat. She once dug out an urn containing grain, but there was only a shallow layer of wheat in it. Even the most unpalatable rice grains only cost about 1 stone, which is barely enough for a family to survive until the summer harvest. Those 2 old hens at home are probably the most valuable items at the moment. But now I am a small one, with weak legs and weak feet, and I can't even speak. Not only can I not help my parents, I have to rely on them to take care of me." Yingbao was worried, her little face wrinkled up in worry. "My mother is pregnant with her younger brother and needs to supplement her nutrition. How can she only eat wheat and millet?" Suddenly, an idea flashed in her mind. There is a river in the west of the village. Although the water in the river is strong, there are fish in the river. Dad, look forward to the fish. She decided to remind her silly daddy. If there is no meat, it's okay for my mother to eat fish. As long as you borrow a fishing net, you can always catch fish and shrimps. End of this chapter. After picking up the lucky girl, the whole village became prosperous. Chapter 4, a book. Chapter 4, a book. What? Jiang Sanlang couldn't understand his daughter's speech as always. Fish. Yingbao felt tired. Fish. Chuanyang smiled and translated, my daughter said she wanted to eat fish. Yingbao nodded repeatedly. Beauty is still smart. It turns out Yingbao wants to eat fish. Jiang Sanlang suddenly realized, when Dad gets back, I'll go down to the river to catch one. Yingbao. I bought brown sugar, measured a few liters of rice, and spent another 10 cents on a bamboo-backed basket to hold things in. The remaining money in my hand had already been spent. Jiang Sanlang put his daughter on the back of the bamboo basket, took his daughter-in-law and rushed home happily. After returning home, the little girl put her head on the Kong, and one of the couple started a fire and the other kneaded the dough, preparing to make some dough to reward themselves. Yingbao was very bored on the Kong. He rolled around several times and simply lay down and pretended to sleep. He took out a handful of husked rice from his small pocket, quietly brought it into the cave, and placed it next to the stone wall with the various seeds collected in the previous days. These are all I secretly grabbed from the grain storage at home a few days ago. Yingbao counted several soybeans, a handful of wheat grains, a handful of rice millet, and a handful of rice that he had just brought in. It's a pity that she is too young and lacks energy, so her consciousness cannot stay in space for too long, otherwise she will definitely plant them all. While she still had energy, Yingbao carefully looked around the cave. I saw that the roof of the cave, the surrounding areas, and the soles of my feet were all made of hard stone walls, and I felt as if I was in a confined space made of rocks. There is no passage to enter or exit the space, but she is clearly standing here, which is very magical. Yingbao also discovered that some crystal white and transparent plants grew out of the cracks in the rock wall, which looked a bit like woodingji. These crystal white leaves are only the size of soybean grains, plump, and clustered together like palm-sized hydrangeas. When pinched, the leaves will burst into pulp, and the pulp is sticky, like cactus juice. The juice has a light and refreshing fragrance, and it dries quickly when applied to the hands. The skin that has been applied is as smooth as a layer of snow cream, and the lingering fragrance lingers for a long time. This thing seems to be non-toxic, but I don't know if it can be eaten. However, according to the principle of the story, some heavenly materials and earthly treasures grow in mysterious caves or secret realms, so this crystal white plant may be some kind of heavenly material and earthly treasures. Yingbao was thinking wildly and decided to take some time out to feed the animals to see what the reaction was. It's a pity that she hasn't been able to find a suitable opportunity recently, and she hasn't been able to meet animals that she can come into contact with. Of course, you can't use your own hens to try it. If they kick up their legs or don't lay eggs, you and your parents will be heartbroken. Yingbao looked at the cave for a little longer, but couldn't hold it any longer, her eyelids kept sticking together, and she fell asleep without realizing it. In her sleep, she seemed to be walking in a fog. Suddenly, a golden light flashed in front of her, and a huge book as big as a table appeared. On the cover of the book were the following characters, Qian Gong Tian Jiao. Well. Maybe it's because I haven't read a storybook for a long time, so I can always dream about one, and it has such a popular title. Turning to the first page, Yingbao read it carefully, and several familiar terms jumped out on the page. Chuanha Town, Xichen Village, Qinchuan County, Chen Tian Tian. Yingbao was stunned. The place where I am is Chuanha Town, Qinchuan County. The one across the river is Xichen Village. Also, the name Chen Tian Tian was so familiar, but she couldn't remember where she had heard it. While I was deep in thought, suddenly a gust of wind blew, and the book in my hand instantly turned into paper butterflies and flew away, making it impossible to catch it. Unfortunately, it will be gone after reading 2 chapters, and I don't know what to do. The content of these 2 chapters is actually very simple. It mainly talks about Chen Tiantian's beautiful appearance and cleverness. It also explains that she is a famous beauty in Qinchuan County and the family's favorite little lucky star. One day, a group of poor relatives from the countryside suddenly came to Xiaomei's family. It is said that the Chuanha River flooded and destroyed many houses and farms. These relatives fled from the village and went to Qin Tiantian's mother, Xiao Han. Yingbao frowned. Shichen village suffered a flood and went to the county town to seek refuge with relatives surnamed Han. This is exactly what happened when she was 9. Speaking of which, Chuanhe town, where she is located, is adjacent to the Chuanhe River and suffers from floods every few years. It's just that the terrain of Dongxichen village is relatively high. Whenever a flood occurs, only the crops and farmland are flooded, and the village houses are not affected. When I was 6 and 9 years old, there were 2 serious floods in Chuanhe River. When I was 6 years old, I remember that there were heavy rains just after the beginning of summer, and then the water level of the river rose until it reached Dongxi village and surrounding villages. People took their cattle and sheep and fled to Hebei Mountain or Shaonan Mountain, which is higher. After staying on the mountain for more than 10 days, the water level gradually receded. The water in the village has receded, but the crops that were about to mature were gone. The river water in the fields was silted up, and it was impossible to replant for a while. Therefore, many villagers took their families and took refuge outside. In the summer when I was 9 years old, there were heavy rains for many days, and the river surged in. Not only did it wash away the stone bridge between the east and west villages, but all the houses in the village were also wiped out. Many villagers died in the unprecedented disaster. Water. Yingbao remembers that she fled to the county town with Qin Changping's family, and even stayed at the home of Aunt Han, the younger sister of her biological mother, Han. Aunt Han comes from a good family. Her husband, whose surname is also Chen, is said to be a close confidant of the county captain. He is quite famous in the county. Even the chief bookkeeper of the yamen and the clerk are called brothers to him. Aunt Han has 2 sons and 3 daughters. She usually calls her daughter, Deya, Erya, Sanya. I wonder which one of them Chen Tian is. After being unable to think for long, Yingbao's consciousness began to become chaotic. When she woke up the next day, she still had the dream from last night in her head, and her whole body was wilted. Sigh, it would be great if I could keep reading. The feeling of being wetted is really annoying. Bauer, let's eat. Chuanyang cooked thick and sweet white rice porridge and stewed an egg custard, stirred them together and fed them to her daughter. Yingbao stammered and quickly finished a small bowl. She needs to grow up quickly, so that she can run and jump quickly, so that she no longer needs to be taken care of by her mother-in-law all the time. Bauer was so good today. He finished a whole bowl. Chuanyang put down the bowl, smiled and helped her daughter rub her belly. Let me see, Mom, is your belly stretched? Yingbao was ticklish, so she giggled and avoided Anyang's hand. Mother and daughter were really having fun. Old Mrs. Jiang walked in carrying a basket. Mother is here. Chun Yang quickly stood up and went to greet her. After the family separation, although she and Wen Po lived in the same village, her mother-in-law Jiang Lu rarely visited her house. Today, it was rare that she came to her house early in the morning. However, Chun Yang knew very well that she was pregnant, and her husband must have told her mother-in-law. The old lady put the basket on the table and looked at her daughter-in-law up and down, her eyes slipping to her belly. Sanlang said you were happy, so I came over to have a look. I happened to have some eggs saved at home, and your sister-in-law asked me to bring them over. The old lady and her husband lived with the eldest son, and the management of the house was left to the eldest daughter-in-law. Fortunately, the eldest daughter-in-law is virtuous and sensible, so she picked up a few eggs early in the morning and asked her to give them to the third sister-in-law. End of this chapter. After picking up the lucky girl, the whole village became prosperous. Chapter 5, Send a child to a boy. Chapter 5, Giving a child to a child. Chun Yang helped her mother-in-law sit down on the edge of the kong, wringing her fingers and saying, "We still have eggs at home. You 2 elders can save these for your health. It's not easy for anyone these days, not to mention that I haven't given birth yet, so how can I ask for my sister-in-law's eggs?" Ms. Jiang Lu rolled her eyes at her, took off her shoes, got on the kong, and sat down cross-legged. You have it in your family, and your sister-in-law is so interested in it, how can you refute it? Besides, you are pregnant with twins, and you are about to take more supplements. Mr. Su lowered his eyebrows and listened quietly to the instructions. Mrs. Jianglu became angry when she saw her third daughter-in-law's silent expression. She clapped her fingers and began to preach, "Look at you, you are already pregnant. Don't stay at home all the time. Move your legs and legs more when you have nothing to do. You can also give birth. Smooth." Chuanyang wanted to argue that she didn't stay at home all the time, but she was afraid that she would offend her mother-in-law by interrupting rashly, so she had to hold back. Ms. Jianglu continued, "You don't have to do the hard work. There are always 3 men. If nothing works, just go ahead and call your sister-in-law and sister-in-law. They will always help you." Facing her mother-in-law's kindness, Chuanyang was a little moved and responded in a low voice, "Yes, mother." Mrs. Jianglu sat upright, spitting and lecturing her a lot. Seeing that Chuanyang was always obedient, and not like her second daughter-in-law who liked to talk back, she felt much better. The years of depression were also wiped out by the third daughter-in-law's pregnancy. Dilute. The old lady nodded the tip of Xiao Yingbao's nose sitting next to her, and said in a gentle tone, "And you, don't let your mother hug you in the future, be careful of squeezing the little brother in your mother's belly." Seeing her grandma talking about herself, Yingbao gave her a toothy smile and said, "Grandma, Bao Bao, if you don't want to hug me, I will hug you. Oh, my dear baby can call me grandma." Seeing that the little baby was so sensible and could understand people's words, Mrs. Jianglu was very happy. She touched the baby's head and said lovingly, "Grandma is old and can't hold Yingbao. Can you let me hold you later?" "Yes." Yingbao nodded, "Sister, hold me." The eldest uncle's family and the second uncle's family have several male children, but only 2 female children. They are Danny from the eldest uncle's family and Ernie from the second uncle's family. One is 9 years old and the other is 6 years old. In my previous life, before I was 5 years old, would often run wildly behind my 2 cousins. They had a lot of fun gathering lichens, collecting firewood, cutting pigs and vegetables, and even making mud to play house. But those beautiful memories came to an abrupt end when the Chen family arrived. "Okay, Grandma, I'll let my sister come and hold you." Mrs. Jianglu touched Yingbao's forehead and said to her daughter-in-law, "Pack some clothes for Yingbao and take her to the front yard. Let your sister-in-law help with her, you should also take good care of your baby." "Ah." Su Chuanyang declined immediately after hearing this, "Why trouble my sister-in-law? Yingbao is good, I can just take it with me. It won't take any trouble." She was reluctant to hand over Yingbao to others, and neither could her sister-in-law, "Up to you." Ms. Jianglu glanced at her third daughter-in-law and realized that she had confessed everything she needed to. She got off the Kong, put on her shoes, patted her clothes and walked out. As she walked, she said, "If you can't find it one day, go to the front and call Danny and ask her to help take care of it. I'm going back, so be careful and don't hurt yourself by climbing up or down." "I got it, mother." Sent her mother-in-law away, Su Chuanyang sighed. Remembering her mother-in-law's words to move around more and have a better child, she reached out and hugged her daughter, "Yingbao, would you like to go outside with me to see the peach blossoms?" Yingbao remembered her grandma's instructions and did not dare to let her mother hold her. Yingbao shook her head and pushed her mother's hand away. Yingbao twisted her hips and slid down the Kong, then handed her little hand to her mother to hold. A peach blossom was in full bloom at the entrance of the courtyard, with pink petals flying all over the ground. The mother and son walked around for a few times and rested under the peach tree. Yingbao held on to the big stone under the tree, sticking out her buttocks to pick peach blossoms, while Su Chuanyang sat beside her and embroidered tiger head shoe uppers. Aunt Wang next door also came over with a sewing basket, sat down on the pony under the tree, stared at the tiger head shoes in Chuanyang's hand, rolled her eyes, and said, "Hey, make it for Yingbao." "Shoes. Su Chuanyang didn't really want to talk to second Aunt Wang. In the past, this girl often teased herself outside. Second Aunt Wang ignored Su Chuanyang's indifference and said mysteriously, "Chuanyang, let me tell you something strange." Su Chuanyang glanced at her, "What's the matter?" Second Aunt Wang moved the pony in front of Su Chuanyang and said, "Didn't the daughter-in-law of the main family of Chen village give birth to a baby 2 years ago? Fourth Aunt Wu from Shichen village was invited to deliver the baby. Guess what? What's going on? Second Aunt Wang chuckled, glanced in the direction of Ing Bao, and whispered, I heard from fourth Aunt Wu that Qin Changping's daughter-in-law in the West Village has given birth to another daughter. Su Chuanyang didn't raise her eyelids and said angrily, what's wrong with giving birth to a daughter? What's so strange about it? Hey! It's nothing unusual, but since the birth at Chen Erlang's house, I have never seen her carrying her child out of the house. Chun Yang stopped her sewing and raised her eyes to look over, why don't you go out? Second Aunt Wang covered her mouth and chuckled, some people say that his family gave their daughter away. Chuanyang's heart skipped a beat and she frowned. Hey, who can I give it to? Second Aunt Wang couldn't help but glance at Ing Bao, who has spare money to support other people's daughters. Chuanyang lowered her face and said, Second Aunt, what do you mean? Aunt Wang chuckled, I just said it casually, don't worry too much. Your Sanlang picked up the cherry treasure from outside. What does it have to do with Qin Changping's family? After all, Chen is also a person who has read books. There is no shortage of food and drink at home, so how can we abandon our children, right? He said and winked. However, Qin Changping's mother told the outside world that the little girl was born weak and died the next day. Gone. Chun Yang felt relieved. Oh, people have two mouths, so I can say whatever I want, but I don't know which one is true and which one is false. Aunt Wang was sorting out the thread and said, but Aunt Wu, who delivered the baby, said that the baby she received that day was crying loudly, and she didn't see any signs of weakness. TSK, 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 if it wasn't for the frailty, why would the child be so good and so good? Ouch, I don't dare to think about it. This year, Jing'er is not short of food and clothing. Who can be so cruel as to throw away his own child? Chuanyang pursed her lips and said nothing. Little Ing Bao, who was picking up peach blossoms, looked back at Aunt Wang, feeling overwhelmed. In the last life, the Qin Changping family insisted that the child was weak and had no breath, so they threw it into the back hill. They did not abandon it intentionally. So the government directly ordered her to be returned to the family, and Qin Changping paid the Jiang family 2 taels of silver for her upbringing. I remember that when I was forcibly taken away, my parents' eyes were red from crying. It was precisely because of that lawsuit that the Jiang family and the Qin Changping family completely fell out. Ing Bao rubbed her nose and pulled her sleeves down. This birthmark is the ironclad proof for Qin Changping and the midwife to confirm her identity. She must find a way to get rid of it before she turns 3. In the evening, Su Chuanyang told her husband what Aunt Wang said during the day, and said worriedly, do you think our Ing Bao is really Qin Changping's child? Jiang Sanlang was silent for a long time and then said, so what if it's from his family? He has already lost his daughter, can he get her back again? But Chun Yang hugged her daughter close to her and said in a low tone, I feel so panicked that I never feel at ease. Jiang Sanlang held his wife's hand and comforted him, don't think nonsense. When I picked up the Ing Bao, no one was around to see it. Who can prove that the child is from Qin Changping's family? Besides, he lost the child in the first place. He threw her into the grave, obviously not wanting her to live. How could she be found again after such a long time? Yes. Su Chuanyang felt relieved. He closed his eyes and suddenly opened them again. Sanlang, you didn't tell anyone where you picked up the cherry blossom, did you? Jiang Sanlang nodded, I'm not stupid. Since I have decided to keep Ing Bao, how can I tell the truth to others? That's good. Su Chuanyang leaned her head in her husband's arms and said in a low voice, if so, if someone really comes to recognize the cherry blossom treasure in the future, just say that you picked it up in Shaonan Mountain. 1 south and 1 north, separated by about 10 miles, good. The couple were speechless for a moment. Chun Yang suddenly remembered something and said anxiously, Sanlang, there is a birthmark on Ing Bao's wrist. Do you think that family will use the birthmark to make trouble? Jiang Sanlang frowned and said after a long time, then let's not let others see her birthmark. But, Chun Yang said worriedly, it's cool in the weather, but I'm afraid it won't be hidden in the summer. How can a child wear long-sleeved clothes in summer? Even if they were given to her, she wouldn't be able to wear them. Doesn't she know how to talk about it herself? Alas. Don't think about it, go to sleep. There will be a road before the car reaches the mountain. Jiang Sanlang comforted his wife. Chen Chongping is a scholar after all, so he still wants face. We didn't steal the Yingbao, he has to come and ask for it. Be reasonable. Chuanyang stopped gnawing in silence. End of this chapter. After picking up the lucky girl, the whole village became prosperous. Chapter 6, Plant Trees. Chapter 6, Planting Trees. Yingbao closed her eyes and pretended to sleep, silently listening to her parents' whispers. The parents underestimated the shamelessness of Chen Chongping and his wife. They don't need face at all, as long as they can achieve their goals. Consciousness sank into the sea of consciousness. Yingbao carefully observed the red birthmark on her wrist. How can I remove it without leaving scars? As long as the birthmark on the wrist is gone, no one can prove that he is a child of the Chen family. Yingbao squatted by the pool, put her arms into the cold water, soaked and scrubbed them over and over again, then picked a handful of Wuding Zhizhi juice from the stone wall and applied it to her wrists, repeating this process. She wanted to try to see if she could rub the birthmark away. Isn't it said in the storybook that Lingquan can cleanse the tendons and marrow and eliminate bruises on the body? Although I don't know whether this water is a spiritual spring or whether Wuding Zhi is a natural treasure, how can I know if I don't try it? 4 months passed in a flash. Yingbao is 1 year and 3 months old. Through unremitting efforts, now she can not only run and jump, but her language skills have also been greatly improved. It is midsummer now. She is wearing a sweatshirt and shorts sewn by her mother-in-law, with cloth bands wrapped around her wrists. She is digging a hole with a small shovel in the corner of the yard, preparing to transplant saplings. The apple seeds in the black soil of Dongfu had already sprouted, and 2 of them sprouted at a time. Unfortunately, the seedlings stopped growing when they reached the height of chopsticks. As a last resort, Yingbao decided to move them out and plant them in the northwest corner of the yard. This place is the family's small vegetable plot. The soil is soft and fertile, which is suitable for seedlings to grow. Yingbao, what are you doing? Su Chuanyang walked slowly with a big belly. Her face was rosy and plump, her face was radiant, and she was even more beautiful and demure than before. She was already 7 months pregnant, but it was as if she was full term, and it was very difficult to move. Yingbao planted the seedlings, covered them with soil, raised a smile and said, "Apple tree." Su was curious, where did Yingbao get the apple tree? It's grown from seeds. Yingbao didn't hide it either. The apple daddy gave me has seeds. Yo! It's true. Su Chuanyang was surprised. You must know that apples are a rare item here. They can only be sold in the county town, and the quantity is not large. They are rare items brought by caravans from other places, and they are often bought up by rich people as soon as they appear. The eldest aunt, Jiang Yunyang, and her family are doing business in the county town and are easily exposed to foreign caravans, so she can bring some back to her natal family to honor her parents. When was the Yingbao planted? Chun Yang was a little disbelieving. My little daughter is busy in and out of the yard every day, so I thought she was playing in the mud. Yingbao stood up and said, they were planted in spring. As she said that, she ran to the kitchen to scoop out water for irrigation. Of course, she is not scooping out well water from the water tank, but using her time in the kitchen to sneak water into the cave. Bao, don't water the seedlings with well water. You have to dry them in the sun first. Su Chuanyang is a farmer, so she naturally knows that well water can harm seedlings, so she gives some advice to her daughter. Yingbao blinked, hesitated for a moment, and had no choice but to put the water ladle on the ground. What my mother said makes sense. The saplings in the cave don't grow big, maybe because the pond water doesn't get the sun. Seeing how cute her daughter was, Chun Yang couldn't help but pat her head and said softly, when your father comes back, let him carry water from the river and leave it for you to water the trees. In fact, Chun Yang didn't have much hope for her daughter's apple sapling. After all, no one had ever seen this kind of thing before, and the fruit saplings needed to be cultivated and grafted by knowledgeable people before they could bloom and bear fruit. Otherwise, it would be in vain when they grew up. Of course, she won't say these things to hurt her daughter. Are you a child? Who doesn't have some beautiful fantasies? It is extremely hot at noon in midsummer, and the sun bakes the earth. It is so spicy that it can make people peel off their skin. In the field of bean sprouts, Jiang Sanlang, wearing a straw hat, sweating profusely with and weeding, finally finished hoeing a field. Looking at the sun high in the sky, my stomach was already singing about the empty city strategy. I wiped a sweat, bent down to pick up the empty water jug, and rushed home with my hoe. I met my neighbors Uncle Wang and Aunt Wang on the way and said, "Hello, Uncle, do you want to the ground too?" Wang Er is about 40 years old, semi-deaf, dark and thin, and his back is severely curved due to years of hard work. His wife, Aunt Wang, is strong and has a sharp mouth. When she saw Jiang Sanlang smiling, she asked, "Sanlang, when will your wife give birth?" Jiang Sanlang scratched his head, "It's still early." The doctor told him that his wife's due date was in early October, but she could not rule out that it would be earlier than expected. So Jiang Sanlang didn't want to tell others about his family affairs, especially people like Aunt Wang who liked to gossip. Seeing that Jiang Sanlang was perfunctory with her, Aunt Wang curled her lips and did not mention the topic. She just smiled and said, "Hey Sanlang, your Yingbao has become famous recently." Jiang San frowned. "Second aunt, what did you say?" Second Aunt Wang came closer and said mysteriously, "Let me tell you, many people in the village have recently spread that your Yingbao is the reincarnation of a boy under the Guanxian seat, who came down to earth to give children to others." Second aunt, "Please don't talk nonsense." Jiang Sanlang was displeased. "Why is this boy reincarnated? Who can talk so nonsense? I'll go to her house later and talk nonsense. Is anyone talking about a child like that? My Yingbao can't afford this name. Head. It would be fine if Yingbao was her own child, but she was picked up. Once this rumor came out, it would not prevent her biological parents from being interested." Second Aunt Wang snorted, "Why am I talking nonsense? That was spread by outsiders, I'm just telling you out of kindness. Besides, what's the point of not admitting that Yingbao is a gift boy? Your wife, Chun Yang, is really pregnant with twins. There has been no news in the past 10 years. How could it be such a coincidence? Ridiculous." Jiang Sanlang's face darkened, he ignored Aunt Wang and strode away. Humph. Second Aunt Wang rolled her eyes. "What kind of big-tailed wolf are you pretending to be? I tell you with good intentions, but I'm still pissed. The dog bit Lu Dongbin, but he doesn't know a good heart. Bah! I took advantage of you and didn't let anyone tell me. Why didn't you see your wife's pregnancy when you didn't have Yingbao? In the first few years, I saw medicine dumping in your house every day, and the small pond behind the house was almost filled. Who would you think was blind?" Secret Aunt Wang cursed secretly and glanced at her husband glaring at her. She couldn't help but said angrily, "Why are you glaring? You're a useless killer. You only know how to bully your own mother-in-law. Why didn't you glare at Jiang San just now?" Second Uncle Wang's eyes narrowed, he rolled his tongue and muttered a few words. He couldn't hear what he said, so he turned his head and hurriedly walked to the front with his on his shoulder. Turning back to Jiang Sanlang, he strode home and saw the little girl standing at the door of the yard looking at him from a distance, and couldn't help but feel warm in his heart. Daddy is back. When she saw her father coming home, Yingbao quickly moved a bench for him to sit on, then ran to the kitchen and stood on the stool to scoop water for her father to wash his face. Jiang Sanlang followed the kitchen, reached out to lift his daughter off the bench, patted her gently, and said with a face, "How can you stand on the bench to scoop water? What if she falls into the vat?" Yingbao giggled, "Yingbao won't plant it in a vat." End of this chapter. After picking up the lucky girl, the whole village became prosperous. Chapter 7, Water Chestnuts. Chapter 7 Water Chestnuts. Jiang Sanlang hummed softly, scooped up 2 ladles of water, took off the sweat towel from his shoulders and rubbed it twice in the basin, washed his face 3 or 5 times, and wiped his neck and arms. Finally cool. Looking again, the water in the basin was completely black. After pouring the water, he saw his wife coming over holding her waist. "Sanlang, put the vegetable soup and noodles under the basket. Yingbao and I have already used them. You can eat them quickly." "Okay." Jiang Sanlang nodded and took out a large bowl of shepherd's purse soup, 5 black flour pancakes, and a boiled goose egg from under the basket. Where did you get the goose eggs? Jiang Sanlang sat down at the small table, rolled up a piece of cake and took a big bite. Danny sent it over. Chun Yang took a cattail fan to cool her husband, and gave Ing Bao a few fan blows as well. Bring 2, Ing Bao and I will eat 1, and leave this one for you. Jiang Sanlang took a sip of the vegetable soup, then picked up the pancake and munched. I'll give you the goose eggs for tomorrow. People say that if pregnant women eat goose eggs, the babies they give birth to will be white. Why would a man like me eat this? It's a waste. Chun Yang laughed and said, Nonsense, why are you wasting your food? Ing Bao and I have boiled eggs every day, as well as screw shrimps and loach sent by my eldest nephew, including this goose egg. Hurry up after eating. If you the ground under the bright sun on such a hot day, you will get the heat if you don't touch the meat. As he spoke, he picked up the goose egg and knocked it on the corner of the table a few times, breaking the shell into pieces, and handed it to her husband. Jiang Sanlang had no choice but to take it and peel off the shell bit by bit. Chun Yang sat down on a high stool, waving the cattail leaf fan to cool her husband and daughter. She saw 2 hens at home surrounding the little daughter, as if begging for food. She said softly, It's strange to say that these 2 hens in our family are. The chickens have gained a lot of weight recently and are laying eggs more diligently. They lay 2 eggs a day, both of which are double yolks. Ing Bao looked up at her mother, then squatted on the ground and played with the chicken's head and feathers. 2 hens cooed and pecked their little master's toes very affectionately. Hearing this, Jiang Sanlang paused and frowned. They are probably fed with earthworms. Didn't Danny often take Ing Bao to dig earthworms to feed the chickens these days? The chickens are strong and naturally lay eggs frequently. That's right. Chun Yang looked at her daughter with a smile. The more she looked at her, the happier she became. Ing Bao is getting more and more beautiful, with pink makeup and delicate eyebrows like a doll in a New Year painting. Even though I was running around all day and being exposed to the wind and sun, I didn't get a bit darker. Looking at the other children in the village, after the summer harvest, they all looked like black loaches, and it was almost impossible to see them. Bao, come on, open your mouth. Jiang Sanlang picked up a piece of egg yolk with chopsticks and stuffed it into his daughter's mouth, then gave another piece to his wife, and then ate the remaining goose egg. After dinner, the family of 3 lay down on mats and took a nap. Ing Bao couldn't sleep. When her parents fell asleep, she got up and slipped out of the yard. 2 hens followed her step by step. The 3 little ones came to a small dry ditch. This is the earthworm base that Ing Bao and sister Danny often visit. The soil in the ditch is rich and fertile, which is suitable for raising seedlings. Ing Bao squatted in the pit and dug a shovelful of soil. She shoveled the soil with some fallen leaves into a small bamboo basket, then carried it back to her vegetable patch and spread it around the saplings. She was so tired after 2 trips back and forth that she sat down on the ground to rest. Suddenly I slapped my forehead and realized that I had an invisible mobile warehouse. It would be no problem to transport some soil. Hey, people have really become smaller and their heads have become rusty. Looking around, there was no one around. It was noon, and everyone was at home to escape the heat, so no matter what I did, no one would see me. Ing Bao immediately became nervous and picked up a shovel to shovel the soil. Shovel once and collect once, shovel once and collect once. Soon, she harvested a large area of fertile soil in the dry ditch. The 2 hens cooed anxiously when they saw that they could not eat the insects. They tilted their heads and looked at their owner in confusion. Ing Bao apologized for touching them and promised, "Wait a moment, when Sister Danny comes, you will have bugs to eat." She had to collect more soil when no one was around so that she could grow seedlings later. "Bao, what are you doing?" Jiang Sanlang woke up and his daughter was missing. He hurriedly went out to look for her. No, he saw his daughter squatting in a ditch with her face and hands covered in black dirt. She didn't know what she was doing. Ing Bao suddenly stood up and ran over. The 2 hens followed closely behind her, running so fast that their wings fluttered. "Dad, Bao dug earthworms for the chickens to eat." Ing Bao dumped the blame on his companions without blushing. Two hens, she is lying. She lied. She ate it all herself, not even the dirt was left. Jiang Sanlang took his daughter home, wiped off the dirt on her body, washed her hands and face, placed her next to Chun Yang, squeezed the little knot on her head, and threatened, "Sleep. If you dare to run around alone again, be careful to spank her." Ing Bao giggled, nestled next to her mother, and made a face at her father. Jiang Sanlang stood up and said to his wife, "The sun is not so strong outside. I'm going to the remaining land. You should be careful at home and don't go out for a walk. Look at the little cherry blossoms again and don't let her go out. Running around." "Yes, I understand." Chun Yang leaned on the couch, touched her daughter's little head, and said softly, "Bao has really been wild recently. If he is not careful, he will disappear. I can't catch up. You can go back later. Call Danny from the front and ask her to come over and play with our Ing Bao." "Good." Jiang Sanlang went to the kitchen to fill a can of cold boiled water, put on his straw hat, and went out with the hoe. Not long after, Danny ran over, followed by her youngest brother Yuan Bao. "Third aunt, let's play with Ing Bao," Danny said. Chun Yang was walking back and forth in the house. When she saw her niece and nephew, she smiled and waved, "Danny is here, come in quickly, the third aunt will make you some sugar water, eh? Doesn't Yuan Bao have any homework today?" Yuan Bao is 6 years old this year. He has just entered a private school for enlightenment in the spring. Going to school every day feels like going to the execution ground, and coming back is like a monkey descending a mountain. No homework. Yuan Bao sniffed and looked downcast. He didn't understand why all the adults liked to ask him this question when they met him. Couldn't he say something pleasant? Ing Bao ran over and held her little cousin's hand. "Brother Yuan Bao, can you read to Ing Bao?" Yuan Bao touched the back of his head, his face full of confusion. I only know the 3-character classic. The first few paragraphs. Alas, I shouldn't have come with my eldest sister. How about brother Yuan Bao reading the 3-character classic? Although Ing Bao is literate, he can't let his parents know. Only if I have more contact with Yuan Bao and learn more, can I dare to reveal it a little bit. Yuan Bao couldn't stand the expectant look in his little cousin's eyes, so he had no choice but to clear his throat and start to recite. In the beginning, people are inherently good by nature, similar in nature, and distant in habits. After memorizing, 3 talents are the benevolence of heaven and earth, Yuan Bao started to stumble and scratch his ears and cheeks. Ing Bao clapped her little hands and praised, "Brother Yuan Bao is so awesome." Yuan Bao blushed, but his small chest straightened up instantly. Chun Yang greeted, "Come here quickly and drink sugar water." Yuan Bao, ignore your sister, come quickly and drink water to moisten your throat. Yeah. Yuan Bao breathed a sigh of relief and quickly ran over to avoid his little cousin. Ing Bao snickered and ran to drink water. After drinking the brown sugar water, the 3 children stayed in the house for a while. They felt bored, so they ran out of the yard and fished for bugs in the woods in front of the door. Yuan Bao was the most familiar with this game. He picked a handful of locust leaves and pulled them off, leaving only the slender stems. He lay down on the ground to find a few small wormholes, poked a thin leaf stem into it, patted the ground with his hand, and shouted, Ma go, come out quickly." Then with a slight twitch, a small green and white insect was caught on the leaf stem. Yuan Bao laughed loudly, wiped his nose with the back of his hand, and showed Ing Bao a small insect. Ing Bao took a few steps back, she didn't want to play such a little kid's game. He turned to Danny and said, "Sister Danny, would you like to go pick up the water chestnuts? Their small mountain village has rice fields, and you can find many small water chestnuts in the paddy fields, which taste sweet." Danny was also very moved and immediately nodded in agreement. So Ing Bao went home and told her mother-in-law, and ran to the nearby paddy fields with Danny Yuan Bao. In the paddy field, the seedlings have just taken root, and the small water chestnuts are also quietly sprouting. Danny and Yuan Bao took off their shoes and stepped into the paddy field. They bent down and dug out a handful of small, round water chestnuts. They quickly pulled out a pocketful of small, round, black water chestnuts. This kind of water chestnut is only the size of a fingernail and tastes sweet and refreshing. Yuan Bao immediately stuffs a few into his mouth. End of this chapter. After picking up the lucky girl, the whole village became prosperous. Chapter 8, Shepherd's Purse. Chapter 8, Shepherd's Purse. What are you doing? A roar sounded in the distance. The paddy field owner has already rushed over in anger. Run! Danny picked up her shoes with one hand and ran away holding Yingbao with the other. Yuan Bao followed closely behind, and the three children ran away in an instant. Look at you coming here again, I'll knock your legs off. You little bastard. The landowner didn't really pursue them, he just wanted to drive these naughty kids away. How many monkeys in and outside the village don't cross the border several times a day? How can you beat him every time you catch him? They are all the children of fellow villagers, and there are not many troublemakers in any of them. Yingbao ran home with her cousin and got a small handful of water chestnuts. With her eyebrows curled with joy, she secretly sent a few into the space to be used as seeds, and gave the rest to her mother-in-law. Chuanyang reluctantly took it and scolded, "Why did you go to the paddy field? What if someone tramples on the seedlings?" Yingbao said proudly, "It was not trampled." Chuanyang sighed, took the water chestnuts and washed them, picking away the black, rotten and shriveled ones, leaving only a dozen or so that were fresh and edible. By now, Danny and Yuan Bao had returned home with their trophies. Yingbao divided a dozen small water chestnuts into 3 parts, one for her father, one for her mother, and one for herself. It is impossible for Chuanyang to ask for her daughter's snacks. She just refuses to say that she doesn't like it and lets her keep it for herself. Yingbao didn't force herself. After eating one of the sweet treats, she brought the rest into the room and placed it on the bed. Take off your shoes and climb onto the Kong, close your eyes, and enter the cave with your consciousness. I saw a pile of dirt piled next to the pool. There were a lot of earthworms crawling outside the pile, and they were all heading towards the pool. It looked scary. What's going on? Why do the earthworms in the dirt pile run into the pond? It would be terrible if the water is polluted. Yingbao quickly picked up 2 tree sticks, picked up earthworms, and put them into a half-broken clay pot. She picked this thing up from outside. Although it was broken, it was still useful and she put it into the cave. I originally expected to use it to scoop water, but now it comes in handy. Soon after the earthworms were picked up, Yingbao shoveled a little more soil and pressed it into the pot to prevent them from escaping. After thinking for a while, he pulled out another earthworm, picked out a little wudingzi from the stone wall, crushed it and smeared it on the body of the earthworm. For a long time, the earthworm showed no reaction and no struggle. It can be seen that this thing is not poisonous, but I don't know if people can eat it. Maybe you might as well take some out for the hens to try tomorrow. A while ago, she only gave the hens water to drink from the pool. She did not feed wudingzi, but threw them some shepherd's purse that grew in the cave. She picked the shepherd's purse seeds from outside and sprinkled them on the black soil. Unexpectedly, within a few days, a large patch of shepherd's purse sprouted out, green and tender, each one bigger than her head. Seeing that the shepherd's purse was almost filling up the black soil beside the pond, she had no choice but to shovel some out and secretly feed them to the chickens. Judging from the recent egg-laying frequency of hens, the vegetables produced in the black soil should be good. So she always likes to sneak out alone when she has nothing to do, and when she comes back, she brings half a basket of shepherd's purses and gives it to her mother-in-law. Chuanyang was surprised at first, why her daughter could always find such fresh and plump wild vegetables. You know, it's summer now. Most shepherd's purses are blooming and setting seeds, and their stems and leaves are too old to bite, so they can't be eaten at all. And my daughter brings back half a basket of fat and tender shepherd's purse every time, which is really impressive. Fortunately, Chuanyang didn't think too deeply, and she didn't know that there was a golden finger in the secret cave in the world. She just thought that her daughter was smart and clever, and had better luck than other children. Inspired by shepherd's purse, Yingbao focused on the rocky clearing beside the pool. She will spread the soil here and plant various vegetables. Although perennial fruit trees do not grow very large, this 1.5-year green leafy vegetable can grow normally and the growth rate is quite fast. When the vegetables grow and people can't finish them all, they can be used to feed chickens, sheep and pigs. In the spring of next year, she will let the hens at home hatch some chicks and feed them with dongfu crops. In this way, the younger brother will have a lot of eggs to eat when he grows up. If he cannot finish eating, he can take them to the market to exchange for money. So she collects all kinds of things these days. Like shepherd's purse seeds, horsefly seeds, dandelion seeds, mustard seeds, etc., we would not reject anyone who came, so we collected some of them and put them on the broken pottery she picked up for later use. It's a pity that there are so few vegetable varieties in small mountain villages. The villagers' vegetable fields have nothing but amaranth, greens, winter melons, kohlrabi, etc. Unlike in Fucheng, the tables of wealthy families have a wide variety of vegetables. In some farms of aristocratic families, there are also varieties from foreign countries. The crops in those foreign countries are rare and precious, and ordinary people have no access to them. Ingbao can only think about it in his heart. Ingbao squatted down and shoveled a few shepherd's purses. She estimated that there would be enough for the family at noon tomorrow, so Ingbao stopped. He also sprinkled the newly collected small water chestnuts on a piece of black soil and poured enough water. Feeling a little tired now, Ingbao quickly left the cave and fell into sleep. When I woke up, my father was already back. Aniang had just made dinner and was about to call her. "Bao, get up and eat." Ingbao turned over and sat up, rubbed her eyes, turned around and slid down the earthen bed. "Put on your shoes yourself, reach out your hand to hold Anyang, and walk out of the house with her. At the moment, the sun is in the west, and there is a breeze outside, which is much cooler than inside." The dinner table was placed in the center of the courtyard. There was a large pot of amaranth and corn porridge on the table, as well as a stack of black flour pancakes and a plate of pickled shredded kohlrabi. Jiang Sanlang finished washing his hands and face, hung the sweat towel on the drying line, walked to the table and sat down. The family of 3 sat around and started eating. "Sanlang, are you going to the fields tomorrow?" Chun Yang asked. Jiang Sanlang shook his head. "Our family's bean field has been hoed. The eldest brother's family still has 2 farmhouses, but he doesn't need my help. The 3 brothers of the Jiang family are not divided into households, and the fields are planted, but because their father and mother are still there, the second old Yongye Tian and the mouth are under the name of Jiang Dalang. Therefore, when the farmers are busy, the brothers will help." Jiang Sanlang drank vegetable porridge from a pottery bowl larger than his head, grunted and took a few mouthfuls, then stuffed a few pickles into his mouth and chewed slowly. "I'm going to Beishan tomorrow. I think I can cut Rami. Rami is harvested 3 times a year, and the end of July is the time for the second harvest, so we can't delay. There is a lot of hemp grown in Beishan. Can you do it alone? Why don't you ask your eldest and second brothers to help?" Chun Yang felt that her husband was working too hard, but she couldn't do anything to help, and she was a little worried. Jiang Sanlang shook his head. "No need to invite them. I will do it alone. It will be done in just a few days." Ingbao blinked at her father and suddenly said, "Dad, I will go tomorrow too. There are many wild fruit trees in Beishan. Even if those fruit trees cannot bear good fruit, she has black soil. She can cultivate them first and then move them out to try." Jiang Sanlang stretched out his hand to pinch her little nose and said with a smile, "What are you going to do?" "Dad has to do some work, so he can't take you with him." Ingbao wrinkled her nose and muttered, "Bauer wants to go. Bauer doesn't need Dad to take care of him." "Hey! You've got the patience." The father rubbed his daughter's little head. "Be obedient, and I'll bring you some apricots when I come back." After finishing the meal, he put away the dishes and chopsticks, and Jiang Sanlang boiled water for the family to wash. By the time they were all done, it was already dark. Jiang Sanlang used a cattail leaf fan to drive away the mosquitoes in the linen tent, put down the tent door, and the family of 3 went to the Kong to rest. Ingbao slept in the innermost room, close to her mother-in-law, dozing off with her eyes closed but her ears erect, listening to the whispers of her parents. "There is nothing I can do. I slept for a long time in the afternoon. I was a little excited at night and couldn't sleep." "Is Bauer asleep?" Father Jiang asked. Ing Bao made no sound while pretending to be asleep. She knew that whenever her father asked this question, he just wanted to tell her something that he didn't want her to hear. In the darkness, Anyang touched her eyes with her hands. Asleep. Chun Yang said, she is probably tired today. She and Danny went to the paddy field to pick up water chestnuts at noon, and she said she would leave them for you. After dinner, she played with her 2 apple seedlings, watered them and cultivated the soil. I was afraid that the chickens would peck me, so I looked around for a basket to cover it. Jiang Sanlang chuckled twice and asked, where did you get the apple seedlings? It's the apple you brought back last time. Bauer kept the seeds. TSK, I don't know how she planted it, but 2 seedlings sprouted. Chuanyang sighed, you said she is so young, but she knows how to leave a seed for seed, and she actually planted it. Jiang Sanlang was silent for a long time before he said, Chun Yang, don't say these words to others in the future. Chun Yang sensed something was wrong in her husband's tone and hurriedly asked, what's wrong? Did anyone say anything? Yeah. Jiang Sanlang said, I met Aunt Wang today. She said that people in the village say that Ing Bao is a gift boy. I'm afraid that some people have unscrupulous intentions. How can a child at such a young age bear such titles? If the news becomes more and more outrageous, they will not be able to protect their daughter based on their status as a couple. Chuanyan also fell silent. End of this chapter. After picking up the lucky girl, the whole village became prosperous. Chapter 9, Rumors start. Chapter 9 Rumors arise. After a long time, Jiang Sanlang spoke again, Chun Yang, how did Ing Bao know that you had a brother in your belly at that time? Chun Yang paused and said, I heard from the old man that children have spirituality since they were young. When they grow up, those spiritualities gradually dissipate. This is not surprising. They also say that the younger the child, the easier it is to tell whether there is a boy or a girl in the mother's belly. I estimate that the baby I am carrying must be a boy. Jiang Sanlang chuckled, it's true, my mother asked Yuan Bao last time, is your third aunt carrying a brother or a sister? Hee, I hope it is a son and a daughter. Ing Bao will have a younger brother to protect her and a younger sister in the future. Keep company. The two chatted for a while and gradually fell asleep. Ing Bao didn't sleep, blinking in the darkness. The rumors still started. It is estimated that the family will hear the news soon. Ing Bao sank her consciousness into the cave and lowered her head to check her wrist. I don't know if it's an illusion, but the color of the birthmark seems to be lighter, but it's still clearly distinguishable. The size of a copper coin and the shape of a plum blossom, it is very strange and unforgettable. Ing Bao is worried. I have been scrubbing it for several months, but the birthmark has not changed much. It can be seen that it cannot be washed away with Wadingzi and pool water. Then there are only 2 other methods to use, either cutting with a knife or burning with fire. Seeing that his younger brother is about to be born, he will soon become the focus of the entire village, so he can't delay it any longer. The cuts and burns were very painful, and she was afraid that she would not be able to do it. But if you are afraid of this pain, you will only have more pain waiting for you. It's the kind of pain that hurts all over your body. Otherwise, wait until the weather is cold before doing anything. That way, the wound will be less infected. The next day, Ing Bao got up early, dressed and washed herself, still wrapping her wrists with a cloth band. Go and water the saplings first, then continue to cover them with wicker baskets. Go to the chicken coop to pick up 2 more eggs and put them into the egg basket. Then he picked up a small basket with a small shovel in it and took the 2 hens out for a walk. Not going far, just wandering around home. Hey, it's Ing Bao. Second Aunt Wang was carrying the toilet and was going to wash it by the river. When she saw the little baby in shorts and a jacket, she asked with a smile, why are you going so early? Ing Bao blinked her eyes, raised her head and said with a milky voice, Second mother-in-law, I'm going to dig earthworms to feed the chickens. Oh, what a good boy. Aunt Wang's eyes rolled around Ing Bao's body, and her eyes stopped on Wazi's wrists. Why are both wrists wrapped with cloth? Are they injured? No. Ing Bao said seriously, it looks good when worn. In order to coax her daughter into not taking off her wristbands, Chun Yang also embroidered the 2 strips of cloth with plum blossoms and branches. In fact, Chun Yang didn't know that even if she didn't coax or embroider the strip of cloth, Ying Bao would still be wearing it to prevent others from discovering the birthmark. In her previous life, Ying Bao was still a naive and ordinary child. She didn't know what her mother meant by wearing a wristband on her, and she didn't follow her instructions seriously, which led to attracting that family. Second Aunt Wang smiled and asked in a low voice, "Ying Bao, tell second mother-in-law, did your father or mother ever beat you? Did they deny you food?" Ying Bao secretly rolled her eyes and said tenderly, "My parents like Ying Bao the most, so they don't beat me. They also leave the best food to Ying Bao. My parents say that Ying Bao is their favorite. Who dares to bully me? Just hit her." Aunt Wang's face darkened, and the corners of her mouth twitched. "Hey, this little talker can really talk." She turned around and walked away. Ying Bao stuck out his tongue at her back and took the 2 hens to Xiaohan ditch. Seeing that there was no one around, he took out the jar of earthworms from the cave and knocked it over. The earthworm that had been smeared with Wadingzi was also taken out, cut into sections with a shovel, and fed to the hens. 2 hens rushed over with a cooing sound and quickly ate up a few earthworms. Then his head tilted from left to right, and he kept looking at the owner, as if he still wanted it. The earthworms poured out of the jar were crawling around, but were ignored by the 2 chickens. Even if the little master cut off a few of them and pushed them forward, the hen would just take a few steps back and ignore them. Ying Bao was thoughtful, then picked out a handful of Wadingzi from the stone wall of the cave and handed it to the hen. The hen was very excited. She stretched her neck and pecked at the baby quickly. She also pecked the baby's fingers back and forth. The force was very light, which made her giggle. Subsequently, Ying Bao spent the whole day observing the 2 hens. Seeing that there was nothing strange about them, I felt relieved. A few days later, Jiang Sanlang finished harvesting Beishan Rami, carried it to the pond behind the house, threw the bundles into the water, and started retting the Rami. These Ramis need to be soaked for several days before being peeled, so Jiang Sanlang finally has a few days to relax. "Ying Bao, do you want to go to Beishan?" Jiang Sanlang still remembered that his daughter was going to Beishan, and today he was going to fulfill her little wish. Think. Think. Ying Bao raised her little hand, happily letting her dad hug her. Jiang Sanlang laughed loudly and brought a basket over. "Ying Bao will sit in the basket, and dad will carry it easily." "Yeah." Of course Ying Bao had no objection and happily stood in the basket. Beishan is about 3 or 4 miles away from Dongchen village, and the vegetation is denser than that of Xiananshan. Jiang Sanlang pointed to a piece of mountain forest and said to his daughter, "This is our family's land, and next to it is your eldest uncle's and second uncle's family. Your grandfather's land is close to Shichen village, which is a bit far away from here. Last year, he went to the old man's field to pick cherries. When he passed by a graveyard, he heard the cry of a baby. So he ran over to check and saw a little swaddle in the grass. The swaddling clothes were covered with ants and they were biting the baby's face. The baby shook his little head helplessly and cried loudly, which was very pitiful. Jiang Sanlang couldn't help but feel heartbroken when he thought about the scene that day. Fortunately, the little baby's recovery ability is amazing. Within a few days after being brought back, the redness and swelling on the little face subsided and no scars were left. "Let's go, Daddy will take you to see our mulberry tree." Jiang Sanlang carried his daughter on his back and walked to a mulberry field. Although the villagers in Chuanha town are not good at raising silkworms, every household has planted some mulberry trees. This is a rigid rule of the imperial court, which not only requires each household to plant a certain number of mulberry and elm trees, but also plants trees that are easy to grow into timber, otherwise the fine will be doubled. Jiang Sanlang stood on tiptoe, pulled out a handful of mulberry branches and handed them to his daughter, with several purple mulberries hanging on them. Ying Bao narrowed her eyes with a smile, picked the largest and most purple mulberry fruit and stuffed it into her father's mouth. "Dad, eat it." Jiang Sanlang accepted it and found a few more trees. He broke off a large number of branches with mulberries and put them into his basket. He told his daughter, "Don't be greedy. Let's take them back and give them to your mother to taste." Eating less of this stuff can stop diarrhea, but eating too much will cause diarrhea, so Jiang Sanlang doesn't let his daughter be greedy. Take it back to mother. Ing Bao said as he said, he still picked a few ripe ones and secretly took them into the cave to keep seeds. She has more fruit saplings. Father and daughter walked around in the forest and found many wild fruit trees, such as chestnuts, wild mountain peaches, and wild mountain pears. The fruits produced by these wild fruit trees are not only small, but the pulp tastes bad, so the villagers are not very interested. Only children occasionally visit them once or twice. Jiang Sanlang took his daughter around for a long time before he found a few ripe yellow apricots. When he opened them, he found that there were worms in the yellow apricots. Shaked his head and asked his daughter, "Can we go home now?" Ing Bao couldn't bear to leave. She wanted to see if there were any mulberry ears here, which were the snow fungus that grew on the mulberry trees. That thing is valuable. If it is dried, it can be sold for 20 taels of silver per caddy in a big drugstore in Fucheng. Suddenly, 2 short-tailed deer emerged from behind a clump of trees, blinking at them. "Dad, deer! Deer!" Ing Bao excitedly tugged on her father's collar, pointed to the side and reminded him softly. Jiang Sanlang also saw it and was even more excited than his daughter. "Dad saw it. Well, let's go home quickly and hunt with your uncle and uncle." Speaking, he turned around and left. The mountain deer were alert and had already fled into the woods and disappeared. Jiang Sanlang hurried back home, handed his daughter to Chun Yang, took his bow, arrows and rope and went out. "I haven't been to mountain deer in Beishan for several years. I didn't expect a group of them to come this year. The wife at home is about to give birth, and she is worried that she has no money to make preparations. Unexpectedly, she encountered a God-given opportunity today." Jiang Sanlang went to the old house to join his eldest and second brothers. The 3 of them took water bags and a few cakes, carried bows and arrows on their backs, and quietly left the village. Mountain deer are not easy to hunt. They are very clever. They will disappear into the woods before you can fully draw the bow. Therefore, you must first drive them to an open area and then hunt them. This hunting requires a lot of effort. Searching, driving, and rounding up take at least a day or 2. Some hunters go into the mountains for 10 days and a half just to hunt down 1 or 2 big animals, such as deer or bears. End of this chapter. After picking up the lucky girl, the whole village became prosperous. Chapter 10, Deer Hunting. Chapter 10, Deer Hunting. 3 days later, each of the Jiang brothers came back carrying a deer, causing a sensation in the whole village. 3 deer, 1 dead and 2 injured, one of which was a young deer. "Jiang San, you are not being honest." A young villager said sourly, "I went hunting deer and didn't even say hello to my brother." Jiang Sanlang chuckled and said, "This happened suddenly. Besides, I didn't see you that day." Knowing that he was perfunctory, the young man put aside the topic and asked, "Where did you go hunting?" "Beishan, my eldest and second brothers and I chased for dozens of miles and almost got lost and couldn't come back." Jiang Sanlang put a rope around the neck of the young deer and tied it to the hand of the stone mill handle. "Beishan, I went to Beishan to cut hemp yesterday." "Why didn't I see it?" asked another villager. "By the time you see it, the deer have already disappeared." The young man choked angrily, and turned to ask Jiang Sanlang, "You hunted back 3 deer this time, so the herd must be quite small, right?" Jiang Sanlang, "It's not big, just 3 or 4, 3 big deer and 1 small deer." Actually, more than that, but how could he tell the truth to outsiders? This time he and his eldest and second brothers went to chase deer and found that there were more than a dozen deer in the herd. If they hunted one, they would be back the same day. Because the weather is too hot, dead deer cannot be kept for a long time, so they must be brought back and processed as soon as they are hunted. But how could such a good opportunity be let go so hastily? So they kept following, waiting for an opportunity to hunt a few more live ones and bring them back. Sure enough, their hard work paid off and they were able to hunt 3 deer as they wished. But on their way back, a deer died due to serious injuries. Fortunately, they wrapped the dead deer with herbs and did not rot much. When the young man heard that it was just a herd of small deer, his resentment disappeared, and he said angrily, "You are really lucky, you hunted all three of them back." Jiang Sanlang smiled innocently and went to help his elder brother skin the deer. Yingbao squatted in front of the stone mill and saw the deer curled up under the stone mill, with its big wet eyes looking at her in horror, and her heart moved slightly. The deer's hind seemed to have been wounded by an arrow. Some herbal juice was applied on it, but blood was still oozing out. There were many flies circling around the wound, which didn't look good. Yingbao slowly moved over, quietly got some wudingzi from the cave, crushed it and applied it to the deer's wound. As soon as she finished applying it, she heard Sister Danny call her, "Yingbao, don't touch it, be careful not to dirty your hands." Yingbao turned around and smiled, "It's not dirty." Danny saw that her little cousin's hands were really not dirty, so she picked her up and took her out of the yard. "Let's go see the deer skinned." Yingbao didn't want to go, she still wanted to see the injured deer. "But I was not strong enough to defeat Sister Danny, so I could only turn around and follow her step by step." A group of villagers gathered in the woods outside the courtyard, and they were all watching with great interest the three brothers Jiang Daijian and Jiang Daijian skinning the deer. Several children were walking around in the crowd, sometimes touching the antlers and poking the deer's legs, laughing and playing. Yuanbao was also among them. He was like a little wolf guarding its food, glaring at this and blocking others, not allowing others to touch his deer. At noon, the Jiang family cooked venison and invited Chen Fu, the head of the Chen family who lived in Dongchen village, Chen Sanyu, the village leader, a private school master, and several respected village elders to come to their house for dinner. After the venison banquet was over and the guests were sent away, old man Jiang asked his three sons to sit down and talk. "There will be a fair over there at Simon tomorrow. You three brothers will take the injured deer and its skin and antlers to sell. Simon is close to the county seat and there is a big fair, so you can get a good price." Old man Jiang took a sip of the bamboo leaf water handed to him by his old wife and said slowly, "The money earned will be divided equally between the three of you. As for the little deer, I will leave it to Sanlang and Dalong Erlang. Do you two have any objections?" Jiang Dao hurriedly said, "Look at what you said, what do we think? We are all one family, and the deer should have been given to Sanlang." Jiang Er also nodded, "Yes, Dad, you are too outspoken. What do you think of our brothers?" Old man Jiang nodded, "That's good." Turning to his third son, he said, "You can take the fawn back later. I think Yingbao likes it very much. If the fawn can be raised, I will sell the money and leave it to her to make clothes for her. Sanlang, Yingbao is well behaved, it needs to be taken good care of. This is to hand over the ownership rights of the fawn to Yingbao." Jiang Sanlang smiled and said, "Dad, don't worry, my daughter will have new clothes even if there are no deer. As long as you understand." Old man Jiang snorted, "Both boys and girls in our family are equally valuable. Yingbao is also my granddaughter. If others have it, she must have it too." He was reminding his third son not to neglect Yingbao when his biological child was born. Jiang Sanlang is not stupid, so he naturally knows what his father wants to say. "But how could I treat my daughter badly?" The old man looked down upon his son too much. "Don't worry, Yingbao is my eldest daughter, and all her younger brothers and sisters can only respect and love her. When she grows up, I will find a good husband for her." Jiang Sanlang said with a smile. Mr. Jiang glared at Sanner and said, "She's just saying stupid things. How old is she now? Get out of here." Jiang Sanlang got mad, took the deer home, and tied it to the leg of the table in the main room. Yingbao heard the noise in the room and quickly got off the bed and ran over to watch. "Dad, how did you bring the deer back?" Although the three Jiang brothers have separated their families, they have not divided their households. Whenever the three of them work together to make a living, the main share of the profits is from the big house. After all, their parents still live in the old family's house. Jiang Sanlang smiled and said, "Your grandfather gave the deer to our family and asked my daughter to raise it. Later, I will sell the money to buy cloth for you to make colorful clothes." "Really?" He. Yingbao was very happy. She touched the deer's head happily and muttered, "I will fatten you up and give you meat to my brother. Little deer. Hunt back in fear. Stay away from this scary human cub." That night, Ingbao had another dream. She stood in a thick fog, and the book appeared in front of her again. The pages of the book automatically turned to the third chapter without any wind. Ingbao didn't dare to hesitate and quickly went up to watch. Unexpectedly, after reading a few chapters, the book turned into paper butterflies and flew away. This time Ingbao is sure that the characters described in this book are Chen Changping's family in Shichen village and Aunt Han's family in the county town. Except for the absence of the name Ingbao, everything else corresponds one-to-one. The book says that Chen Changping was the second of 3 brothers, and he was a child who failed to succeed many times. His wife Han's parents died young, and she has no brothers alive, except Han, a younger sister. Han had an eldest daughter, Chen Wan, a second daughter, Chen Zhao, a third daughter, Chen Ing, and a 4-year-old son, Chen Su. The third daughter Chen Ing was the name given to Ingbao by Chen Changping in his previous life. Ingbao narrowed his eyes. This book is really interesting. It is written from the perspective of Chen Tian, the second daughter of Aunt Han's family. The book describes Chen Changping's 3 daughters. The eldest is timid, the second is sweet-mouthed and bitter-hearted, and the third is gloomy and vicious. They are all women who cannot be put on the stage. The only son, Chen Su, is a spoiled little bully, selfish and annoying. That's the truth. Chen Changping's 3 daughters were often beaten or scolded by Mr. Han. Girls who live in this kind of family atmosphere all year round must have some personality problems. Ingbao remembers that she was brought back to Chen's house when she was 5 years old. As soon as she entered the door, she was beaten severely with a bamboo stick by Han, leaving bruises all over her back, arms and legs. It is estimated that Mrs. Han felt sorry for the 2 taels of silver awarded to the Jiang family. Coupled with her previous depression and Ingbao's crying, she wanted to give her third daughter a blow and vent her anger on herself. After all, the process of getting my daughter back was quite difficult, and she even had trouble with the government. The Chen family seemed to have won the lawsuit, but they also lost face in the village. However, Mr. Han really got his wish, and gave birth to a big fat boy the next year. Chen Changping was very happy and went through the books to give his son the character, Su, and his nickname was Baoer. As a tool man, Ingbao has lived a life of dire straits in the Chen family since then. End of this chapter.